On this episode of the Last Minute Blues podcast, a couple of things that we talk about is Carolina's Nikishin in play for the Blues and the back end. Also, how will the Blues center depth shake out in this upcoming season? That and a bunch more coming on the Last Minute Blues podcast.
This is the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donny Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on your home of the St. Louis Blues, 101 ESPN.
It is the Last Minute Blues podcast, broadcasting live from the Jeff Burton Studios. Sitting diagonally from me, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic. Sitting next to me, to my left, Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, also handling your Blues pre- and post-game. Gentlemen, it's great to see you. How the hell are you? What's going on?
It's been a while. I was just going to sing that, and then I couldn't remember who it was. It's Creed or Nickelback?
No, it's Stained, but it might as well be the same. It crapshoot with any of those bands.
Like, what's one of them?
The funny part is usually if you're at a party and like you got three people, nobody can think of actually who it was, but we've got the guy.
Oh man,
the guy right now.
I wish I could get some of this stuff out of my brain.
I hear it in my head.
It's been a while. The worst part is, I think the worst part of my job right now is the songs that I am singing in the shower that I cannot friggin' stand. Like, I just hear certain songs so much that I take them home with me, and are just songs that I wish I wouldn't.
I like to call that music terrorism, and my 5-year-old does that every day that they wake up and sing Let It Go, because it's just implanted right here.
And is that, and the Frozen universe is still a big universe for the little ones these days?
That, and in my household, that and Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. That's pretty much it. Yep, my daughter's got those Tony boxes, and they got a little mini Tony, and probably 15 times in an hour, the mini goes on, and it's do Minnie Mouse. God, can we get something else?
Well, pretty soon it's going to be when the Blues.
As long as it's not Country Roads, I am A-OK.
Or it'll be some kind of pop jam. You know what I mean? Like
Blink-182 is always good for me when they play that.
Ooh, by the way, real quick, that Travis Barker documentary is on Hulu now.
Watched it.
Oh, you did watch it?
Watched it.
I watched the first couple minutes, but then got sidetracked by something going on with the kids. But like the part, and this is like not even, but the part where the plane crashes and the first responder police officers are there, and you can hear Travis.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Whoa.
Yeah, it hits you. Because I'm still in the middle of Mark's book, and then I watched the documentary once it came out that first night. I mean, it pulls at the heartstrings a little too much for you when you see the entire crash and what happens, and you hear the audio involved with it. Yeah, it's a lot.
It's just so much.
Yeah.
But then also, even outside of that, Travis Barker is in the upper echelon of what he does. I mean, there are probably not many drummers on the planet that are better than him. And that's not even like hyperbole. I mean, that is the truth.
Oh, yeah.
So you still have all of that going on as well. So I can't wait to watch it. But I was thinking about that. All right, so guys, we're in a bit of a kind of a slow time as far as the offseason is concerned. But there are still some things here to chop up, and a couple of things that I was just kind of wondering. Now, one thing that I meant to mention the last podcast, but we got sidetracked, but I wanted to bring it up here today because more than anything else, I just love the type of former player that Alexander Steen is bringing into the organization. But the Blues announced this a few weeks ago that they have hired Sergei Zubov as an advisor to hockey operations, and I just remember him being like a defensive freaking stalwart for so long. I just really love, like I said, the former players that Alexander Steen is bringing to help this team along.
Yeah, you got Zubov, and then the other guy that they brought in this offseason was Mikko Koivu, who is working with the European scouting for the Blues, and then you add in just all the guys. Like the moment I saw that, your fan takes over and it's like, oh, they're bringing Zubov in to see if they can make a trade for a Russian player, and then you come down to earth a little bit more and you're like, okay, but this is probably just widening that inner circle that Doug Armstrong has always used, and he's referenced it a lot in the past. But when you think of having Al McInnes and having Ken Hitchcock and Bob Gainey and all those guys that he had around, now you've got got Alexander Steen taking over, who keeps that group of inner circle, but he's got different connections that maybe Doug doesn't have. And so you bring those in. But also with Zubov, you have to imagine that that's Doug Armstrong's ties to the Dallas Stars. And when you're bringing in a guy like Zubov, you keep all of these people around so that every conversation you have, you are kind of flipping over every rock and looking in every corner to find everything out that you need to know about the players. And frankly, that's how organizations are really successful, when they have that many people with that great of brains working to identify the problem for the team.
Yeah, Doug Armstrong and maybe even Ken Hitchcock. I remember, when Hitch was the coach, it seems like every day Zubov got brought up. Oh, yeah. Whether the type of person he was, the type of player he was, and then Hitch still obviously kind of an ear for the Blues as an advisor. And you got to believe that he was in Zubov's corner as much as we heard about him over the years. And the first thought I had, Donnie, I do that mailbag like every couple months or whatever. Yeah. And sometimes you get burned a little bit, and I got burned a little bit. So somebody had asked the question, will Alexander Steen name any more people to his inner circle, or is he done? And, just to be frank up front with people, it's not like somebody within the Blues calls you a couple weeks ahead of time and says, hey, Alex has been talking to Zubov and we're thinking about hiring him.
Right. So we need to get a mole in there,
so
JR.
You get this mailbag question. You can go, oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in Sergei Zubov. It sometimes doesn't work like that, right? And so anyway, I answer the mailbag question and I go, but I feel like he's probably got everybody he needs, and they've made some hires, made some good hires, yada yada yada, and answer the question. The mailbag gets published, and the next day comes out the email. Alexander Steen has hired.
So we're starting to become jinxes, because we did the podcast the next day Koivu got traded. Oh, come on.
That just seems like what happens with this podcast and breaking news.
This is what happens when we all talk to BK too much on the station. He becomes a jinx and it leaks off on all of us.
Yeah. Well, what is a guy like? So, what is an advisor to hockey What's the job there? Is it a particular assignment to go watch this player or to go work with this player?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted. I mean, it could be anything. Like Al McInnes has been that type of role over the years, and it could be, hey, listen, Logan Mailloux is available. We're excited about his potential. We look at him, we see him, our scouts see him. We want to know what you think about him. So maybe Al goes and checks out Logan Mailloux for a stretch of games and comes back and gives his report on that. It could be a number of things. It could be, hey, we're thinking about making this trade. Just what are your thoughts? So I think that they can go to those advisors, and they just have a wealth of knowledge to be able to come back to them with their thoughts on just about any topic you could throw their way.
This isn't. And I'm only asking this because I've seen people say like, oh, is he going to be on the ice working with the defenseman? I don't think that's what this role entails.
Usually, no.
This is more like of a front office call if you need me type of check-in throughout the season. We're having issues with this guy. This isn't working out well. I would imagine Jim Montgomery gets the chance to chat with him too if there's ever questions with defensemen. But this isn't like a coach that's coming in that's going to work with these guys. This is more like, hey, you're with Doug, you're with Steen when questions pop up about the roster related. And then that's why, and I know it's kind of... It's beaten like a dead horse at this point because we've talked about it so much, and I know people keep asking about it because the first thing I thought of was the Nikishin front, where it was like, man, but it's weird. You don't hire a guy based on one guy that you may or may not trade for, but it was hard to deny the fact that when Nikishin's name was out there and he's got some relationship with them from their time in the KHL, it's hard to imagine you're not bringing somebody in like that you can talk with saying like, hey, what do you think of this? Is this a route that we can go down?
Yeah, and even if it doesn't work out with that particular player, just guys in general. I mean, look, Mikko, Koivu, give me. I mean, and then now Zubov. There aren't bigger names in those countries in terms of being familiar with the players. Whether it's a player who played with Koivu, which I know these guys are going to be few and far between as these guys get out of the league for a long time. Obviously, Zubov has been out of the league for a long time, but those name recognition. So you get a phone call from one of those guys. Hey, check out the Blues, free agency, what have you. So I think that...
Now, is that considered tampering, though?
Well, if they're free agents...
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I got you.
If they get two free agents.
Okay, got you.
I did want to ask you this real quick. I did not see the report the update on Nikishin?
Oh, yeah.
What is there anything still going on there?
So I didn't see it either. It was brought to our attention on BK and Ferrario earlier this week on Andy Strickland's show, Hockey Sense, to where he essentially said, and I went back and listened to it, that like from what he's heard, the Blues are still looking into trying to move for Alexander Nikishin, and the way that Strickland reported it, and I don't want to like put words into his mouth or misrepresent what he said, but it sounded like he basically said like, look, the Blues in Carolina, like the Blues are probably the front runner for him, and like there's been talks of a deal being close to done, and it's just a matter of getting a contract agreed upon. Now again, that's one person, and Strickland said it was his source. I don't know who his source is. I'm not trying to spread even more rumors. I'm just going off of something that I heard. It would make sense if his name's out there. This Nikishin thing to me, it's weird because one, I don't know what Carolina wants to where they would justify trading him for a team that just won a Stanley Cup and a team that's younger players are starting to get older. And two, I don't know when they pull that deal off. Like you're in the middle of it now when you're getting to training camp, like all the free agents are gone at that point. So it's really weird to me. But I have to go by when I hear somebody say it, it's like, okay, well, that's pretty interesting. If they are in the race for this, it would make a lot of sense if the Blues tried to.
Yeah, sorry, Donny.
No, you go.
I just think that the player makes a lot of sense, Nikishin, right? So, he's left side. He's, a couple years older. I know he's still young. He just won a Stanley Cup. Like Carolina doesn't have any room for him to climb up the ladder. He wants to climb up the ladder, so could a deal work? For sure. Like the Blues should be interested. And maybe why it takes so long is because the Blues don't want to give up what Carolina wants. Like, I don't know, you guys have mentioned a possibility of whether it be like a Jake Neighbours or something. Like, I wouldn't do that if I were the Blues.
Wouldn't either.
Yeah, Blues have other defensemen that you can bring along that, maybe they're not Nikishin, but at least they, have the ability, potential, like a Theo Lindstein, so on and so forth. So if the price is right, yeah, for sure, go ahead and do it. In terms of the timetable, yeah, it seems you don't see too many late August, early September, but we did see with Carolina, in fact, the Justin Falk trade. Well, that was September. That was like
that was right before the beginning. I think it was right before a preseason game because I had to get like all the stuff together before we went on air.
A couple weeks before camp. So, if the Blues did not make that move and they just went with who they had and they kept Theo Lindstein, like, guys, going into the season, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I like Theo Lindstein, and I think he could have a good future, but can you go into this season and count on him to play 65, 70 games? I'm not saying you have to because he's still young and you're not trying to fast track him, but if you believe you have a competitive team this year and you're trying to add another player who can fit into that group of young players and help you win, Nikishin would be a great add there. So if you can pull that trade off, you do it. I just don't know if they don't make that trade, can you really count on Lindstein 65, 70 games?
And if it's not Lindstein, can you count on Tyler Tucker to play that many games? Because this was something that I was thinking about. And, you don't want to do this worst case scenario, but it's part of where the Blues are at. If a guy gets injured, do you feel comfortable with the next person on the roster to take over that bulk of minutes and role? And like the way I framed it is like, does this team have enough backup plans for their roster? So what I mean by that is, let's say Joel Hofer gets hurt at some point this season. You feel pretty comfortable with Jordan Middington taking on a bulk of that work, and then a backup you're just going to have to work with. If two goes down, you're in trouble. If you lose Robert Thomas, do you feel comfortable? Probably not. Like teams don't have backup plans for number one centers.
Right.
But at least you have depth now compared to last year where if you lost a center, who were we talking about?
Right.
Booch playing center? Like now you've got McTavish. Now you've got Dvorsky. McMichael that could play that role. You've got Finley. You've got Sundqvist. Like you've got guys. Wingers, I don't even think you need to talk about in terms of backup plans. You're golden there. But for me, the part I thought of is you don't have a backup plan on defense. If you lost Broberg for a significant amount of time, that means Fowler and Tucker and Lindstein are taking on the bulk of the minutes out there.
Yeah.
And I don't like, even on the right side, if Parayko goes down, we're talking Mayu and Carlo. You feel a little bit more comfortable with that than I think you would with Tucker and Lindstein. You got Jiricek, who's a right-handed shot defenseman. That's why the Nikishin thing is so fascinating to me. If they truly are still in on this, it's the one spot that I don't think you have a true backup plan for. And you can't manage for backup plans.
Yeah.
But like, that's the area that if an injury happens to like a Broberg, I don't know how comfortable people feel about your team that season versus another area. If an injury goes down, it feels like you'd be a little bit more comfortable.
All right, I want to rewind just a little bit. So the deal for Nikishin, rumored to be something along the lines of Neighbours, Lindstein, and a first-round pick. Is that
that's just total total speculation.
What the thought is out there.
You would think that if Carolina's making a trade, this is the way that I framed it, because there's been people that put rumor packages out there, and I don't buy any of that. Why would Carolina trade a 23-year-old young defenseman if it's not bettering their roster now? Because Carolina's not going for the long term. They're trying to win as many cups as possible when you've got Jordan Staal, when you've got Aho, and all these other players.
Yeah.
They're young, but their pipeline's dry, and they need help on the NHL roster.
And not to mention the fact that you're going to war in the friggin' East.
Yes.
So you got to be loaded. You're not looking to take any sort of step back, even in the slightest when it comes to
Exactly. And so like when I look at Carolina's roster, and this is how I process it, like you're trading a defenseman that contributed to your roster, you're probably going to want something in return that fills that spot that's maybe cheaper but younger. And then I also look at it and say they need help offensively. Like they're a team that was very good. I mean, they just won the damn Stanley Cup, but they probably would prefer to have depth on their offensive side. Like they're good in the top 6, they're good in their top 4 on defense, and you think they're good on goaltending. So that's the part for me. It's like, well, what would Carolina want? They're going to want help for their roster now rather than something that can help them 2 to 3 years from now.
I just always, when we're thinking about deals like this, and we've talked about it before, it's got to hurt you to get a guy like Nikishin, and I understand that. But boy, Jake Neighbours, I don't know, man.
Oh, yeah.
I might get emotional. I just love that guy so much, and I know that the second half of last year offensively was not great for Jake, but I really feel like if there's any one player on this roster that's going to work their nads off every single minute of the offseason to get better and to fix it, it's Jake Neighbours. I just don't know if I do that.
It's the work ethic, and also it's the culture building. Like Alexander Steen, his number one thing that he's trying to do here is get that going in the right direction. And I think we started to see it last year when they put the younger guys in charge. They surprised me. Like, I know that, people say, hey, you're too attached to the leadership of a Braden Shen, of a Justin Falk. Listen, I knew that they had to move on from those guys, but I didn't realize that when you get a group of young guys that you've assembled, like the Blues have, you put them in a spot where there really isn't a captain, where there isn't a 33-year-old, Braden Shen, they reached out and they grabbed it and they pulled together, and with the help of Robert Thomas. So now you look at this year, they need to continue to build that. And listen, I know I get a little close to Jake Neighbours when you spend some time with the people closest to him and write a story about him. You're like, okay, this is the guy. Like, this guy can be, really, really helpful in that regard. But he can be. And if you're moving a Jake Neighbours, listen, you better be getting something good back, because I just think his personality, what he brings to that locker room, just the culture aspect is going to be through the roof.
It's a no-go for me just because of everything JR just mentioned. And frankly, you don't have to give that up. Like, that's the thing. Like, Carolina's got to make some type of decision. And if you're the Blues, you probably look at this saying, look, this is your best offer that you're going to get. I mean, we learned from that anatomy of the draft, and after talking to Doug following the draft, like, they're not a team that really goes beyond what they think is valuable to them, to where, like, they told Anaheim, we're not giving you the 11th pick. If you want to make the trade, these are the picks. Right. Call us if you want them. And then you force Anaheim to make the deal. Got to imagine they're doing the exact same thing with Carolina. And I truly just believe, like, when you look at the roster, they've got a ton of wingers that you got to start to make some type of decisions on. You've got a guy like Steen that maybe they'd say, hey, if we're going to move this to get a Nikishin, you're advancing the process. That's where you go with this. I got a feeling the Blues basically have said, here's the deal. Take it or leave it. And then Carolina's got to decide because there's no arbitration with Nikishin. Yeah. You either got to sign him to a contract or he doesn't show up to camp and doesn't play. And this is the part why I'm skeptical of the Nikishin trade, because they did the same thing with Necas, to where Martin Necas he wanted a contract extension and they didn't want to pay him the amount of money that he thought. So they did that bridge deal. And then that following season, he was traded to Colorado.
Right.
Yeah, and I was, you talk to people and you hear different things that the Blues were talking to Carolina, and it was a potential Koivu for Necas deal, but the Blues wanted Carolina to throw in a second-round pick. Carolina didn't want to do that, and then eventually Necas went to Colorado. So, I go back to
that's a nugget.
Damn, Jim, hold on, Darren, you're just gonna throw that one in there?
You're just walking away from it.
He just mic dropped and then just left the room.
No, I've mentioned that one before, whether it be in print or Twitter or whatever. But
I must not have read that article, JR.
But I go back to when we talk about this, deal with Carolina, potential deal, is that you're right. The Blues aren't going to make a deal, and I realize there's a different general manager in charge, but Doug is still around. Look at the Bouwmeester deal. That was rumored for like 2 years before they finally got the price that they wanted. What was it? Red O'Bara, a first-round pick, and Mark Kandari.
Look at that think tank.
Jay Bouwmeester. Look at the Ryan O'Reilly deal. It was rumored for months and months, and Doug finally said, no, we're not doing it. And then Buffalo had to call back and say, hey, we're back in.
So that's why, it does feel like there's a chance it could happen, and it makes sense as it gets closer to camp. Carolina's got to make a decision, right? Like, you got to get this guy. You're not just going to leave it out in purgatory. And the one thing you know about Carolina is they don't want to pay guys $8-9 million. Like, they kind of keep that AAV lower. So there's a chance, and that's why for me, it's like, I don't think this is going to be the Blues overpay to get him. I think this is going to be Carolina. Look, take the deal or leave it where it is, but this is our best offer that you can give them. And it does feel like that if you're the Blues, and this is just total speculation on my part, Steen's probably a part of that because you're trading defenseman for defenseman, and Carolina would make sense. He's played in the NHL, a third pair guy. He's got upside, but he's cheaper. And then you're looking at a plethora of the wingers that you have on your roster and finding one that would make sense for Carolina.
I just marvel at the ability to have the poker face here in this situation, or to have that sort of resolve to say, this is the deal.
Yeah.
If you want it, great. You know where I am. If not, I'm going to play golf. Like, I could absolutely never do that. That to me is incredible.
I try it with my kids. I'm like, look, you're going to eat your broccoli. I've already told you the plate's here. Eat it. And then they scream at me for 5 minutes. I'm like, fine, just eat a cookie. I don't care. Stop screaming at me. I would assume it's the same thing.
Let's take a break. Let's come back. Second segment of the Last Minute Blues podcast. All right, so we're back for segment number 2. So I want to kind of backtrack just a little bit. And we were talking about areas where the Blues don't maybe necessarily have the best backup plan in place. Are there any free agents out there right now that you might take a run at with camp right around the corner? I mean, maybe not right around the corner, but coming up here pretty soon. Is there anybody, out there, maybe even forward-wise, that you would go after, even though it seems like we're pretty stacked, like you said, on the wings? What do you guys think of that, and maybe out there a free agent that the Blues might bring in?
It's funny because I was thinking of this, like, this is that time of year when you get closer to camp and you're looking around and you're like, oh, well, this guy has, and I guess I'll call this the Mike Hoffman effect, because that's what happened with Hoffman, right? To where it's like he was still out there and we were like, why is this guy still out there? And then the Blues got him for 1 year at like $4 million, and it's like, whoa. But that's where it's like you look at some of the names that are out there still, like Patrick Laine's name is still out there as a free agent. David Perron, Vladimir Tarasenko. You look around and you're like, well, there's names. Like, do you take a shot on one of these guys and add it to your group? Do you bring them in on a PTO and put that internal competition? I don't know what PTO looks like anymore in the NHL because preseason and camp is not what it used to be.
Super short. It's not like you're trying to fill games. And would a guy even have enough time to show
exactly
what you know what you're getting in those three guys?
Because like for my assumption, there's 4 preseason games. My guess is those last 2 are going to be pretty filled with NHL players. Now, I think you can only play a certain amount of NHL players in those preseason games, but like I assume the first one is going to be a lot more prospects, and then they whittle down that camp, and then it's just the internal competitions. But as much as like you see names out there, I don't think it makes any sense to bring anybody in on a PTO on the wing because like you've already got like 14 guys fighting for 3 spots. It feels
basically 17 guys for 14 spots.
Yeah.
Assuming you keep the max.
Right. And so like, I mean, you got Carbonneau that's trying to fight for a spot right now. I don't think you're doing that. The defensive side, because of the conversation we just had before the break about Nikishin, that's the part that I wonder, is there somebody out there that you'd say, just give him a shot and see what it looks like. Let that competition go with Lindstein and Tucker. But man, even then, I just don't know if they're going to take a chance on somebody. I think they're going to keep this roster as is unless a trade happens and say, everybody's going to fight for spots. This is our group.
Yeah, to me, it's more the trade route still than the free agency route. And it was a light free agency class even back on July 1st.
Yeah.
And now it's really thin. You got some guys who have been around. I know there's probably some Blues fans who would like a go around with Perron again or even maybe even Vladdy.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think with what they're building, they probably won't. And Alexander Steen probably wouldn't go back to another one of his, former teammates anyway. But I think that...
Boy, that would be awkward, right? Lowball one of your old teammates. Like, hey, man, I love you as a teammate, but I only got the bare minimum for you if you want. I'll give you a PTO.
I just think it's, if anything happens, whether it be now or, it's just a trade that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's a 23-year-old guy coming in who's going to be part of your core for the next couple of years, and you've decided that's who you want to bring.
I'll tell you, though, like the idea of Patrick Laine is fascinating to me.
Me too,
and it's only because I don't think they're going to rush Carbonneau. And like we've talked about this before, and we will once camp gets closer. I look at that third line wing spot or even the second line wing spot. Like you've got Neighbours, you've got Buchnevich, you've got Suter, you've got Berggren. There still is a lack of offense in terms of goal scoring. And the other area that I'll be fascinated to see what it looks like this year is your power play. And like the idea of Patrick Laine is plug him in on one of those wings. He's got a hell of a shot. He can score 40 goals. Give it a chance for a 1-year deal to let him try and recoup himself some value. But the off-ice stuff in terms of just where he's at mentally and having him available and what that does to the culture of a younger group, I don't know if I want to mess with that if I'm the Blues.
Yeah, so like, let's say it's hypothetically, it's a short-term deal. He's going to want to put up some numbers, get a contract. That's not what the Blues need necessarily. Yeah, they'd love to have that shot, I think, if it could create some secondary offense type thing. But, with what they're trying to do, and it just reminds me, Donny, I've told this one too, but the night that he scored 5, Patrick Laine here in St. Louis, the Winnipeg writer, Murat, he wasn't in St. Louis for that game. We don't travel to every single game. And so I said, Murat, I got it. I'll pick it up. I'll write the Laine story here from St. Louis. And so when I was in that Jets locker room, he walked by, Patrick Laine did, and I was like, I got to do something. So I had the game sheet that
you and JR gets the jitters.
Yeah. Well, you're only going to get him for a split second. Yeah. Do you ask him that question? What do you do? And I had the game sheet where he had all his goals. Laine, like there. And I go, hey, could you hold this for a second? And for the people watching on YouTube, so he's standing there in the locker room holding this game sheet, and I just take the picture. He to this day, it's probably in his mind the lamest picture he's ever taken in his life.
What did you say afterwards? Thanks.
Yeah,
this is awkward.
Yeah,
give me that back, please.
Yeah, can you imagine? I'm calling the Winnipeg. I got a picture of him holding the game sheet.
Real quick with that, with him, is he? Is the off-ice stuff, is he not, have you heard that he's not a great teammate, or is he just, the off-ice stuff is just kind of enough to...
I haven't heard that he's a bad teammate.
But I mean, playing with this many teams in such a short
two and two together. That's the part where it's like you just kind of wonder. I mean, I know there was a lot of mental stuff that he had been battling, which is why he was away from Montreal. And then, of course, the injury side of it. And the way I always look at it is you look at the coaches that he was a part of in terms of Paul Maurice and then Marty St. Louis, and like those guys that play for those coaches just rally around him, and it just didn't work with Patrik Laine. Now, maybe it was the scenarios he was in. Maybe he truly was injured and he wasn't comfortable where he's at. I don't know any of that. I mean, I haven't heard that it's not like what Elias Pettersson's stuff was, to where like it had been out there how much of a soap opera he was and how much commitment there was to the actual game. It's just something that if the guy's not in the right headspace, wherever he's at, I don't think it makes sense for a team that's trying to reestablish a new winning culture with their group.
Yep.
If they were the Florida Panthers, if they were the Vegas Golden Knights, hell, if I'm the Edmonton Oilers, that's a guy that I'd be more willing to take a chance on, because I'm established enough for you to come in and say, hey man, either get your ish together or get out.
Yeah. Right. And I don't want to overstate this, but I just want to say that when you're around these young Blues players, and I'm like a Snuggerud, like a Dvorsky, like some of the Lindstein, Otto Stenberg, and you talk to them about the young group that's being built, they start saying, oh yeah, I was texting Snuggerud the other day, and we went to World Junior Championships and I caught up with him and spent some time with him. Like, these guys are starting to feel like a family. They really are. Like, the text messages are flying, the phone calls, the hey, good luck, hey this, the battles like in those tournaments. And you just don't need that odd guy to come in and maybe he does something or said something, and then now you got these 6 or 7 core young guys like rolling their eyes at this guy that came in. Can Laine, can this guy, can that guy help so much that distraction or the individualism is worth it? And I don't think that it is. I think these young guys want to take it and run with it. They feel like what they're building is going to become theirs, and they just don't need that extra element.
Yeah. I think one of the most fascinating things about sports in general to me is just that precision in the locker room of finding the right balance of personality, of character, of all of those things. Because, man, it just seems like one guy can really throw the whole damn thing off. And that is so freaking fascinating to me, that one guy in 24 or 25 can maybe wreck the ship.
Look at Vancouver. Vancouver, to me, felt like a team that was going to be pushing for a Stanley Cup. What was it, 3-4 years ago?
It was not that long ago. It's crazy.
It's 2 guys, I guess, but it seems like it all surrounded one guy, and it was Pettersson, and JT Miller fell off. You had Quinn Hughes fall off. Jacob Markstrom left. I mean, like, the entire group that they tried to assemble to win a cup shattered.
Yes.
So, like, it can really change it. I think the idea of the goals, though, it does make you try and go out on a limb and believe, like, oh, well, we could fix them.
Yeah.
And everybody does it, right? Like Evander Kane had taken multiple stops after, what was it, Winnipeg, I guess, is where he kind of got the start, and it didn't work out. Boy, I'm trying to think of a couple of others on this. So Jeff Skinner's another one, though, where he made multiple stops, and it just, sometimes guys take chances on it, and you hope that it clicks for that roster. I just don't think the Blues are in that spot with that type of guy to say, we can make it work.
Right. No, and where we are, it's just too much of a risk to potentially throw that bomb in the middle of that locker.
I think you're better off just putting Justin Carbonneau on one of those wings and letting him deal with the growing pains of the NHL than it would be to bring in a guy like that and try and get the best out of him.
Absolutely makes sense. Let's do this. Let's take a break. Let's come back for the third and final segment. What's going on over there?
Got a little droop on my microphone there. Whoa.
More of the Last Minute Blues podcast coming your way next. We are back with the final segment of the Last Minute Blues podcast. And I want to read an email or two, but before we get there, we have some exciting things percolating that we are hoping to come to fruition. All right, and I don't like we don't like talking about these sorts of things out loud, because even though we probably say we're not superstitious, we're completely superstitious and afraid that it's not going to happen. A little stitious. But it looks as though on Tuesday we are going to be joined in this room by Oscar Sunkel.
Yeah, hopefully next week get Oscar traded text with him. He's back in town, and a lot of the guys are starting to trickle in and start skating. And so Oscar said he'd make some time for the pod.
I cannot wait. I also can't wait to see if I can tell where the duct tape is, or if it's all if he like if his clothes cover it all.
Do you think if you just find a way to put some stuff over it to make sure you can't see where he's put together with toothpicks and bubble gum?
You just have to think that poor man. I mean, but seriously, you talk about a guy that bleeds friggin' blue.
Yep.
It's that friggin' guy.
He's going to walk in here and he's going to walk out and be like, that dude's making the roster. Because he's going to look in incredible shape and be like, that guy's going to make the roster now.
100%. Yeah. But he did sign that two-way deal. I want to ask him about that and all of those sorts of things. So looks like we'll get Sonny on Tuesday, and that will be absolutely tremendously fantastic. And then also, I think we're working on some live stuff as well.
Yeah, it sounds like on October 2nd, it's confirmed we're going to be at and I always butcher this name, the St. Charles Holman Renovation Show, if that is what it's called. I'll double check on this one. Yeah. But it's in St. Charles, and it's this big thing that they have every year. And we've got a sponsor jumping on, Spas and More, that begins in September. They're going to be out there at that. And so it's going to be the afternoon of the first Blues game. So they play that night. I believe it's against Dallas. So we're going to be out there in St. Charles at this renovation show with a live podcast for people, hoping to be joined by a certain guest. So we'll be there for that one. And then it's also percolating, as Donny likes to say, October 3rd, we're hoping that we'll have another live broadcast as well. So we're going to try and build this one up, and then hopefully in the holiday season, we'll have another one like we did last year, where we had the donations for the food pantry. So a lot in the works for the podcast. Even though it's the slow season, you guys are working your asses off, and we got a lot of stuff. And as JR mentioned too, with players coming back in town, we'll hopefully get a lot more guys before the season ramps up. But the slowest portion is almost through, because once you hit September, it's off and running with guys and speculation and training camp and everything.
So are they pretty much, when will everybody essentially be here? Will that be the first week of September?
What are we today? August 19th?
Yeah.
Jared doesn't know where he is anymore.
Yeah, so guys have been trickling in and skating, and that'll, next week will be a big week. But in terms of everybody here, I would say, very last couple of days of August.
Are they still called the captain skate if you don't have a captain?
That's what most people call them. Yeah. If you don't have a captain, wait a minute, I didn't catch that.
If you don't have a captain, are they called captain skates, or are they just called we're all fighting for a captain skate?
Yeah. This is probably a very dumb question, but at these captain skates, do you see any of the coaches, any of the front office guys? No. Yeah. So they cannot be there?
Yeah, they're not allowed to be around.
They can't be there.
I guess they can be there, but it's not a...
Why are you smiling?
I'm smiling because this is going to be my second Hitch reference of the day.
Okay, well, it sounds like we got to get Hitch on the podcast now.
Let's just say it was 10 Augusts ago, and I'm out there just watching these skates, and all of a sudden Hitch is sitting next to me watching the skates, and he goes, "You don't see me, JR."
I would think that there would be a lot of that. I mean, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus.
Hitch is my all-time favorite, man. I love that guy.
Dude, but I would just think that there would be a lot of that sort of stuff. I envision in my head right now, there being the old school stands in your school, and Jim Montgomery peeking through the stands.
Who was his Bobby? God, what was his name from the Mets? Why am I blanking on it? The manager that got kicked out of the game.
Bobby Valentine.
That kicked out of the game, and he came back with his hat down. He had a fake mustache. He was just sitting in the seat like this. Yeah. You don't see me, JR.
Dude, Alex Steen with a fake mustache and wig. I want to see it now, man. I just want to see it.
He had a big trench coat. He's just sitting there like this. Nobody can see me, right? I'm not here.
That is absolutely amazing. And in those captain skates, do they? I mean, is it the speed of an NHL game? Is it?
I mean, they've all been skating. They've all been tuning up. They're all
they're just starting to put it together.
Good shape. Yeah, put it together. Like, I wouldn't call it an NHL game, but, I would say that, they're getting after it. And look, like, I realize that every year they come to camp on, let's just say, the 17th, and they're playing a game like on the 20th. So this isn't completely new, but I mean, they're starting camp on, let's say, the 15th, 16th, playing an exhibition game on the 19th, 20th. That opener is October 2nd. Like, that's 10, 12 days away.
Some teams start on September 29th.
Where in the past, the Blues have started on the 8th or the 9th. So you're playing, I think the Blues, if I added it up, they got the 4-game preseason within 8-day span this year.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I guess all I'm saying is you better be ready.
Yeah. It comes together quick. Yeah. Absolutely so.
I say what this should be is for the captain's skate, they should make it like a King of the Ring tournament, like in WWF stage, and everybody duels, and the last one standing gets to be the captain.
Yeah, get somebody hurt before the season's hurt. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. I just thought about one of our players with a belt, like standing over everybody else.
Saying, I'm the captain now.
Which is just not a great idea.
Now, look, everybody else is hurt, but you're going to feel really good about the guy that won the captain because, like, that dude's a badass. I would put all my money on Ross Johnston.
I don't even know how I'd start that story, and I don't even want to put a player's name to the story because then it'll jinx him.
So takes out the rest of his roster while everybody goes on the IR to win the captaincy. King of the Ring, .1.
Dude, I don't know, man. I think also I just get kind of drunk with those WWE belts.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're pretty awesome.
The spinner ones?
Yeah, I mean, any opportunity to hold one of those things over the head. We talked about this a little bit, guys, but we got this email from Bob from Sacramento, which I assume that's California.
Sacramento?
I don't think there's a Sacramento, Missouri. But this is this is something that we talked about a little bit, but I just want to get this out there for Robert. Hey, gentlemen, now that the roster looks set for next season, what is going to happen at center? From what I've read about McTavish's defensive liabilities, it seems like Bucci is a better bet at center compared to McTavish for 2C. But does Dvorsky make 2C or get bumped to 3C? And where does Connor McMichael then fit? Make it make sense, boys. I would like to start this, and then I'm going to kick it over to you guys, with the idea of Buch at center is no more, right? Like, he is back on the wing, and that's where we are unless somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, I don't think they would have gone out and added 2 centers in McTavish and Connor McMichael. And they obviously, we can't forget about Dvorsky. Like, just even if they bump him down to 3C this year, the goal, the hope is that he'll still be a second line center. You're just giving him some help right now. So I think Buch to the right side. But hey, make it make sense. I wanted to play out too. I want to see how it's going to play out. And, I thought about including this debate, about the center situation in my article last week about things we can watch in camp, but there's going to be tons of time to write about those things. But as we sit here today, there are questions about McTavish. That's why Anaheim traded him. That's why Joel Quenneville, they played him on the wing, and he didn't play center. Eric Stevens, my colleague for The Athletic in Anaheim, he wrote, you would think that a team would give McTavish one more crack at center to see if he can do it. So it's not set in stone that Mason McTavish is going to play, 75 games at center this year for the St. Louis Blues. We could see a lot of situations. We could see McTavish start at center, McMichael start on the wing, and then they flip-flop 20 games into the season. We could see Dvorsky go to second line center, McTavish go to the wing, and McMichael go to third line center. Like, there's so many different things, and so it's hard for us to make it make sense right now.
Speaking of McTavish, you guys see his picture that NHL.com posted? My man is yoked. He is ripped.
So you're right. And again, this is the thing that I almost included in that story last week. Like, hey, has this trade really reignited? Okay, one, for journalists, all of us here, it is tough to know what's real and what's not real. Like,
are you telling me I got caught by AI?
No, like there has
Damn
to
it,
be,
JR.
There has to be some filtering going on in the picture.
No.
Second of all, okay, I can't claim to have watched McTavish every game for Anaheim or know, how strong he was the past couple of years. But there were a lot of Anaheim fans that commented under the picture saying, look, strength has never been his problem. Right. Like, he's always been a bigger guy. It's the speed and it's the defense and it's the this and that. So anyway, when I saw that picture, like, holy smokes.
I need JR the first day of training camp to walk up to Mason and be like, Mason, it's going to sound weird. I need you to take your shirt off.
Yeah, could you do that?
I need you to flex to find out if I got duped by AI or not.
Well, and that's the thing is, and when I'm being serious on this one is, you have to make calls as a writer in terms of, do I put this picture in my story And then what happens if we find out there's more AI to this than it really is? So I just decided, hey, let him come to camp. I'll tell him to take his shirt off. I'll take the no.
Hey, can you hold this up, please, and take your shirt off?
Yeah.
Thank you just real quick on that, I'll throw my 2 cents in too. Buch is so far down that depth chart in terms of centers, because even if McTavish doesn't work out, you've got Pius Suter on this roster still. Like, you've got a Berggren who has played center before, McMichael who has played center before. They should never play Buchnevich at the center position again, because they need to get that guy back to being a 25 to 30 goal scorer, and I think it's best to do it on the wing. I don't even know. This season to me, and I guess next season's fascinating, because long term, I think that's why you draft Tynan Lawrence. It's because you think that guy can be a center for us in the NHL in the middle six. And if McTavish doesn't pan out, well, then you go to the wing and you have a big power forward who can play the wing for you. If Dvorsky doesn't pan out, you got a hell of a shot that could play the wing for you. So, like, you can always make the centers become wingers. It's hard to make wingers become centers. And I think that's why they emphasized, as upset as I got about the Belchez pick over that Dave.
You did?
Yeah, I don't remember that. For that Jared, sorry.
I missed that pod.
I kept that kind of under wraps so you couldn't hear.
I missed
you
those.
did play that close to the vest.
Yeah, I missed those 4 pods.
Yeah, I was making sure that people did 4 pods and a live draft show, just so you know. And I put it on social media a lot. But who's to count?
Watch that guy become a star. He's gonna.
I'm going to be so pissed off. But I think that's why they emphasize the center position, is because, look, we don't know what this looks like. Throw everything at it, and if something clicks, great. The thing with McTavish is, the NHL today is not like what it used to be, where like David Backes could be the center for you, where you're slow and you're just physical and it works. Like, there's a lot more finesse to it. So that's the part that I'll be fascinated to see if Jim Montgomery and if the Greg Cronin is able to work with that, because McTavish's best year defensively was with Greg Cronin. That's going to be the area I'll be really focused in on.
You know, and this is a topic for maybe the next podcast, but I get really excited about this season and about this team. And I really start to get to where I'm, as Mr. Stillman said, getting in over my skis.
Just a little.
But it's good to have these conversations, because there are a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
There are a lot of what ifs. And I'm not saying that they'll all go bad, but there are a lot of questions here. And so it does kind of make me a little bit more reserved, a little bit more wait and see, a little bit more cautious about this team going forward than I was last year.
Hey, listen, I can't edit video, but we need Noah to go back and get your clips from last year at the end of the season to say, next year, I'm not going to, and we're just going to insert that into this year's class.
I can't help it, man. I can't.
I'm so doing that.
I'm trying so hard to just be baseline. Like, okay, let's just wait and see what happens. But then I start to think about when I get off thinking about the good. I'm not thinking about the average or the bad here. And so I just gotta kind of regulate myself. I'm trying, but I don't know what you want me to do. You bring in so many good young players. I'm freaking excited.
When do you think that you're gonna pull the Kramer from Seinfeld, to where like you walk in and you're like, boys, I'm out of this being patient thing. I'm in. I'm all in.
Well,
first game,
I'll tell you what.
Beat Dallas.
No. Now listen, give me a little credit. I would at least give myself first 2 weeks of the season. But I will say, if we're playing great of those first 2 weeks,
they beat Dallas and Colorado in 2 days.
You're gonna need to have to like sit something on me. Like I'm not gonna be able to ease into this in any way, shape, or form. But this is getting to be my favorite type of the year. My Blues are back. Are gonna be back. My Bills are back. It's not going to be hot as balls every day.
That's like the part for me.
Like, this is just a good part of the freaking season, man. Oh yeah, and there's baseball going on too.
Oh, not a big deal.
All right, so Tuesday we'll reconvene. Oscar Sundquist will be in that chair right there.
Yep.
Unless we sit him right there.
No.
Nah, we'll sit him right there.
Where JR is at. We'll move JR there.
What? We got to move JR.
I don't know.
That should be JR's seat.
We put a little reserved sign on it.
Yeah.
For JR when Sonny walks in. Can I sit here? No, sorry, that's JR's. Can't sit there.
All right, so we'll be back theoretically on Tuesday with Oscar Sundquist. You can always send us emails, lmbp@1057thepoint.com. For JR, for Alex, I'm Donny Fandango. Thanks as always for listening and watching. It's the Last Minute Blues podcast. As always, let's go Blues.
Thanks for tuning into the Last Minute Blues podcast on your home for blues hockey, 101 ESPN.